Meet Jeff. He owns a t-shirt store. Jeff is the leading cause of death on the planet Earth. Now let's assume everyone in the world had Jeff's mindset, 7.3 billion Jeffs. It's time to change.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever and wherever you are. This is Ben McLeish of the Zeitgeist movement, and I'm joined today for a particularly important show, I would say, by Matt Berkowitz of the Vancouver chapter. Matt has, in the last couple of months, oft been my, I would say, my co-running buddy in doing these shows, and quite recently he laid down a challenge to me. It wasn't so much of a challenge, it was more a set of questions, and we feel that we need to address the movement membership about this. Matt, would you like to chime in at this point?
Sure. You know, we often talk about how the Zeitgeist movement is all about applying the scientific method for social concern, and the exact conclusions of which that we lay out in terms of the train of thought that we put forward, they're always subject to change. So accordingly, we need to not be so dogmatic to hold on to anything that we think sits well with us or that aligns to previous understandings, and we have to really just embrace new evidence and new logic as it presents itself. So I guess, Ben, you want me to just go into this right now, or?
Well, I was going to say that this is actually not a particularly new thing for us, because we have updated our views before. I'll give you the listeners some examples. The most prominent example I can think of is very early on in our research into human behavior and our exposition of such. We were very much the fans of, I suppose, B.F. Skinner, because B.F. Skinner talked about behaviorism, about the environment shaping human behavior and how it can be controlled. The problem is that, of course, Skinner's thesis was limited in the sense that modern science, modern neuroscience, particularly the work of Robert Sapolsky and many, many others, has shown that Skinner was essentially just measuring the kinds of behavior that can be measured. And that sounds like a strange thing to say until you really look into neuroscience. And of course, as we have come across these new understandings, have seen them verified by the community, quite happily, we've updated it. The general point that we make, of course, still stands, which is that environment has an incredible behavioral impact. That's, of course, still true. It's just that the metrics that Skinner was using and the context within which he was talking about it are in fact no longer valid or are too simplistic. And so we have quite readily updated and amended our views in that regard. So, Matt, I'll hand back to you for what I expect is just simply a continuation of that.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just sort of some of the economic conclusions have shifted quite a bit, I think. And I guess I'll delve right into them. Recent events and reflections have forced myself, and I suppose you as well, Ben, maybe not as much as me so far, but have forced us to shift our perspective quite considerably. From the debate I did this past summer with an anarcho-capitalist to Peter Joseph's debate with Stefan Monologue, I must admit that my mind has changed quite a bit about the resource-based economy. Now, I'm sure the listenership is going, wait, what, really? What are you talking about? But to be honest, I can really no longer defend the criticisms we make of the market. It seems to me that it really is the state that is really disrupting things. I don't know if I'll let you chime in there, Ben, if you want to add something.
Yes, this has been sort of in the back of my mind for a while, but I tried to suppress it with facts and science. But eventually I couldn't anymore, and it just felt right, So, I mean, especially, you bring up Stefan Monologue, or whatever his name is, and, one of the theses he has that really got me was his talk about universally preferential behavior. Now, I found myself disagreeing with his thesis that there could be such a thing as universally preferential behavior absent any kind of religion or anything that would then basically allow you to sort of justify his more economic theses, until I heard him say that if you're disagreeing with it, that demonstrates universally preferential behavior. And when I realized that that's maybe a tautology, but maybe it's also really awesome. I just realized I couldn't disagree with him anymore. Not that I didn't want to. It's that it literally wasn't an option for me to disagree with him at all, ever, anymore, about anything. So please, go ahead with the first thing. Is it? I mean, you can tell me. Is it Peter Schiff who convinced you, or was it Mr. Monologue?
I think it was really a combination of all of them. But it was really just, after interacting with all these people, just sort of sitting down and reflecting on all these assumptions we make and arguments we make, and I sort of had to reformulate them. So again, I would have to say, pretty much all of the criticisms that we make in the Zeitgeist movement of the market really are just a state-infested market that corrupts everything. The market really is just a platform for voluntary exchange, and when uncorrupted by the state, it will only manifest voluntary transactions to take place, meaning, free from coercion. And people say, okay, well, but what about the market and the profit motive? Well, that type of thing will only manifest itself in a violent nature in a system that's been completely usurped by the violent entity known as the state. So I'll just let that digest. I don't know if you have anything to add.
Well, I mean, I'm almost with you on this. The idea that if we just got rid of the state, everything would basically be fine forever. But I do have one criticism, or one question that maybe you can help me answer. If somebody, let's say I am now in a totally free market, and I want to sell cigarettes. I want to sell, large packs of 20. We know from, scientific journals, or do we, that tobacco has been linked to, cancer in at least the lung, if not the mouth, and all the rest of it. If I then go and make a lot of people sick, I mean, is that still okay? I mean, how does that have anything to say about how we understand violence or coercion in that kind of market?
Well, we really need to consider the non-aggression principle here, and this is really at the heart of everything. I mean, let's be honest though. If you want to sell a violent, polluting product in a truly free market, and there's no state to interfere with you and grant you privileges and subsidies that modern corporations get, your upper hand is going to be quite limited, and the information that gets through to all the consumers is going to be a lot more transparent, such that you're driven out of business. And businesses like that simply wouldn't be sustainable in a truly free market. So I think that's, again, that criticism is really just because we live in this system where the state has perverted everything.
So, I mean, look, I once tried to read an article about tobacco and cancer. It was really, really hard. It was from the American Cancer Society, and it was a peer-reviewed journal article that, it was one of many hundreds that essentially proved this link. But halfway through, my eyes got really tired, and I then realized, hey, hang on. If I'm such a fan of the non-aggression principle, then I shouldn't be coerced into reading the rest of this article. And I can basically go and sell cigarettes to anybody, and that's fine, right? Is that a fair assessment of the non-aggression principle?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, the entirety of peer-reviewed scientific literature has been corrupted by state funding, so it's really not trustworthy. I like to rely on more independent sources like Natural News and Joseph Mercola.
I like Natural News as well. Actually, there's another one, Natural News with 3 Zs at the end, like .org/awesome. They have all of the really good stuff, and they don't even have to wait for peer review. Peer review takes a long time, and it's really expensive for publishers as well. It's just really tiresome. You have to remember a lot of different people's names. Like if it's on bioorganic chemistry or anything like that, you got to know the actual editor who knows that stuff. Whereas the great thing about naturalnews.org or whatever with the 3 Zs and the other one and Joseph Mercola or whatever his name is you don't have to wait for any of that nonsense. You can just have the news really quickly. And that's the sign of any good science, is to get news out, articles. It doesn't matter really how accurate they are, just really quickly and with loads of ad space. Because, what's a better sign of a totally free market than having loads of adverts all over really shrill, shouty articles that come at you one every second about things that we thought we knew that we don't anymore. And that's really how I do my research now. I basically take the easiest line of defense and I choose the nicest looking websites and I basically let them inform my whole worldview. I mean, look, I once read a book, and it was really long, right? I mean, even the title was really long. It was like The Demon Haunted World, something, something, something Sagan, right? And I read like halfway through and the guy sounded like he was just a normal chap talking to me. And I was like, well, look, if I want a conversation, I can just go down the pub and smoke some cigarettes that I'd be free to sell in a free market. So why am I bothering with all of this? I'd rather just trust my, what they call intuition, but what, science calls blind prejudice and fear. So that's my formative stuff now. And I've found since doing that I've actually really come around to this, the way that what you brought up recently about this, basically pure free market. I'm doing scare quotes right now for pure free market. So, in a way, thank you. And in a way, sorry, Mr. Something Something Sagan, your book sounded too much like a nice chatty scientist who knows what he's talking about, because I find that really aggressive to have scientists sound like they know what they're talking about. I find that coercive.
Whatever, I'll do what I want.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing I'd add to that is in a truly free market, and with the advent of the internet, it now allows us the privilege of just posting whatever we want on our own blogs. We don't have to go through the inconvenient, rigorous process of peer review that really makes things it's just not really practical anymore to get this information out there. So if you have an opinion now, you can just publish it on a blog, and you can make it seem like it's factual. So I think it's just a great medium to disseminate information now. We don't have to waste time with all this state-funded peer review nonsense.
What about, because, okay, fine, coercion is one thing, right? And the state as well. What about things like scarcity? I mean, what did you come up there? I mean, I'm willing to be sold on pretty much anything. So, I mean, did you find any decent stuff about scarcity? Because that one seemed pretty solid to me, what we say there.
Yeah, scarcity arguments seemed okay on the surface level. But when you really dig deeper, it is pretty much impossible to overcome it. Sure, we could feed everyone in the world if everyone ate lots of fruits and veggies and grains, but you can't realistically expect people to stop wanting all these luxury items. When I was on Peter Schiff's show, he rightly pointed out to me in my interview with him that you can't give everyone a lobster dinner. You just can't. People can't have that every day for dinner, and not everyone can have 10 Hummers. So we really do need money to act as the arbiter for who gets access to these luxury items. You can't just appeal to people needing to change their values. That's just a scapegoat fantasy that the Zeitgeist movement advocates blindly repeat. It's just a utopian fantasy, really. Oh, we just got to change our values. That was basically our excuse anytime someone presented something to us that was inconvenient to the RBE model. So I think we've got to overcome this.
One thing that's always been bothering me, and I always try to blend it out and ignore it in my head by pressing it deep down into my subconscious. But, Peter's often said before, well, the simple way to counter people who say, oh, we can't all have 10 Hummers is, well, I can't have Africa as my backyard. At some point this becomes essentially quite violent and quite irresponsible on the social level. Until the other day when I was taking a massive bath, I realized, actually, I do want Africa as my backyard. That's a tangible want, right? And because it's a tangible want that I've managed to express through language and like my brain and stuff, like that's my goal now in life, is to have most of Africa, if not all of it, as my backyard. And, look, it sounds crazy. I know after everything I've said, you can find hours and hours of me saying the opposite. But whatever, we change our minds all the time. And look, it's science, yeah? Science is behind all of this. Once I have Africa as my backyard, I'm going to invite everyone over to Africa, through the front door, to have a massive party. It'll be like a huge backyard party, with the backyard being Africa. And you know what? I'm not even going to ask people to clean up, because that would be coercion. That would be an illegitimate use of force. And that would be the opposite of the free market. So, it's just come, bring all the stuff you want. Bring waste if you want it. You don't even have to have stuff that turns into waste. Just bring waste and just leave it in places. Africa is big. That's why I want it for my backyard. And then we'll just have a really great time for a bit. And then someone else will clear it up, probably, I hope.
it's a totally legitimate want, and it's only in a truly capitalist free market that you'd be able to get that sort of thing if you just work hard enough and you make enough of a contribution. That's as long as it's done through the non-aggression principle. That's of course the center of the argument. As long as you're not intentionally hurting someone, then that's fine. Now you mentioned Peter. I think I was also speaking to him the other day, and he mentioned some interesting plans about essentially putting the Zeitgeist movement on hold. At least he's no longer interested in being part of it. He's off to Goldman Sachs, I believe, holding a fairly high position to be head of the new North American currency, the Amero, which is going to be a precursor to the global currency. It's just going to be called money, I think, which is going to be a completely cashless currency that's utilizable by everyone on the globe, and we're going to be essentially phasing out all national currencies. I believe also people will be implanted then with RFID chips, and then they can essentially exchange this cashless value automatically. So these are essentially the plans for Peter's position as head of Goldman Sachs. Yeah, I don't know if you want to comment on that. Have you heard about that?
I have actually heard a little bit about that. I mean, you filled in some useful things for me there. I didn't realize that he was going to be head of money. That's good. Sorry, a bit of a cold. But I mean, that's great news for him. I heard that he's amending every single one of his videos to include the word "not" at the end, so he doesn't actually have to refute or any of the stuff. It'll all be taken as a giant ironic statement. So it'll be like, and join us and create and see the largest movement the world has ever seen. Not like that. Or at the end of Social Pathology, where he says,
it would be the dawn of a world we could actually label a civilization. And if that isn't a goal worth working towards, I don't know what is. Thank you.
And so essentially he's managed to negate things without really changing any of the content, and hopefully so that the audience gets bored halfway through everything that we do and doesn't see the last bit where we actually say it was all a joke. So that's been really quite good. I think it was in his contract actually with Goldman Sachs that he had to do that. So it's all basically TZM is now one giant ironic statement on what is quite obviously communism. So yeah, that's really good. Actually, some people might be thinking in the back of their heads now, especially people who might have read some of what the Austrian economists say. And I do recommend only reading some of what they say, because I always find that their worldview is really worth understanding a bit and not completely, just like they do. But I mean, people might be asking themselves, how can Peter be head of the global currency money, which is essentially a central, what would be one big central bank instead of localization, where that actually speaks right against Mises and Hayek and all the Austrians who are against central banking. And this is actually quite simply resolved, and this leads me on to my bit of news, which is that actually I am leaving TZM as well, for reals. I'm leaving it actually to join, and you may not believe this, but you should, because I'm telling you, I'm going to join the Ludwig von Mises Institute. I've been invited to be their new head of economic calculation. Don't be silly, Ben. They obviously don't have economic calculation because Mises spoke of the economic calculation problem. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the reason he had an economic calculation problem is because he hadn't employed me yet, right? Back then, they didn't have that job. It didn't exist, right? It wasn't a thing that they had. And now it is there, and I will be that thing. I will be the head of economic calculation. Peter will be in charge of all money. And luckily we're joining within a month of each other, so we can totally plan to finally take people's stuff away and finally instigate the mass murder of human civilization, except the elites. I don't see how any sensible proponent of the free market or any now ironic TZM member, because it's ironic, right? Watch the films all the way through. It's ironic now. So you're literally a satirist if you're listening to this, and you're a genuine advocate. You're comically commenting on definitely communism. We're now going to finally set the plan in motion. It's the logical train of thought. Again, it comes back to science and being too tired to read things that speak otherwise.
My name is Peter Joseph Stalin. I am a New World Order neo-Marxist communist Satanist who, when not trying to get his beard to look as much like Vladimir Lenin or dress like Mao Zedong, am busy programming robots to speak in fluent, arrogant, anti-capitalistic Marxist dialect as I work towards my final solution, which is the installation of an all-seeing, all-knowing global supercomputer that will rule humanity by a rigid collectivist calculation that will bring about a true socialist utopia that will end all human freedom and liberty forever.
Yeah, it's interesting. And so in addition to, Peter being head of money and you being head of economic calculation, I'll also be leading to be managing one of the big global mainframe supercomputers that controls people and, essentially plots to take people's stuff away, only if they're not following the non-aggression principle. So we have, these are basically three of the big head positions now that are going to be headed up by ex-Zeitgeist movement members. And I think we also need to put a call out to the entire community to step up. If you want to be part of these global elite affairs and part of this new global Austrian economic, supercomputer type of stuff, get in touch with us, and I'm sure we can figure out a position for you.
We're also really pleased to announce that, in the past we've always said, oh, can we get to Woody Harrelson and help him preach the Zeitgeist worldview and stuff because he seems to be in line. Well, actually, we've done a deal with the Church of Scientology where they have said that we can essentially rent 15 of their most famous spokespeople per month for $14.99. I think there may be a mathematical error there. I think it might be more than that. But they've essentially said that if you want to have Tom Cruise utter the words, I support the Zeitgeist movement, communist, integrated Austrian world capitalist money economy or something, and by the way, stop reading science, it's coercive, then we can have that. So actually, we're going to get some incredible TV spots. I think we're going to go on... I think we're going on Oprah in a couple of weeks. Peter's announcing his move to being head of money, I think on her show, followed by her, I think she's going to choose the Zeitgeist movement defined as the Oprah Book of the Month. So it's going to be great. Because loads of housewives will basically get a copy of a satirical work on a possible utopian economy. God, it's making me laugh just thinking about what's in that book and how funny and humorous and how dry the humor is. You'd read all of that book. It seems so serious. But all you have to do is to read between the lines, which is basically to think the opposite of what it says. And you just see the joke right away.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me, I think we're going to have to also make an announcement that we're going to be going through that book and editing it eventually with another copy or another version. And essentially, we'll do the same thing that Peter has done with his films. And, anytime we make a statement or a claim, we'll just, we have to end it off with not, because, let's face it, all the shit that we claim in that book is completely full of bullshit. We study all these, we reference all of these scientific papers. It's just really ridiculous. I think we need to change all these sources to, refer back to natural news with 3 Zs.
Yeah, we do need to amend those things. I don't like the fact that, God, even the spelling is right. It's ridiculous. Who it's coercive. It is coercive to make me spell things properly. I would like to spell Zeitgeist with an S, right? And it's up to me, right? That's the most important thing. And so we're going to be doing that. Yes, we're going to be notifying the orientation guide, and essentially we're now going to. Next week's show will be Stefan Monologue debating Walter Block. By debating, they're really just going to be having a chat about how great everything is, and how as long as they follow the non-coercion principle or else, they'll be fine. So Walter Block is going to be our main theorist, I think, and it's really going to be fantastic. In respect to, there's a couple of other things there, Matt. I'm mostly sold on this stuff, but what about things like environmental degradation? Does that lead in there? My thinking at the moment is still that that's an unfortunate side effect of the capitalist free market. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, you're still just locked into thinking of capitalism, with the state, with all these conflicts of interest and everything like that. In a truly free market, again, there's going to be ways to profit off of protecting the environment. So we essentially just have to, throw our hands up and hope for the best that in a truly free market, these things will just magically work themselves out through the invisible hand. So as long as you have that type of faith and you reject all science and reason, there should be no problem.
Actually, that's a good point. Actually, in fact, I recently found. I mean, in my Z-Day lecture in London, I was talking about the overview effect. You know, the effect that astronauts experience when they really, for the first time, see the totality of the tiny sphere that we're on, and how petty everything seems when you get that incredible overview. And then I realized, actually, I've just been reading all the books wrong, because, I mean, even though they say that, you know, that, oh, wow, you know, I suddenly have a real people focus and stuff, you know, quite a few people said that and they wrote whole books on it. Really, I think that when I get up there and look down on the whole world, I would just think, wow, I am the only person here, and I'm higher up and better than everybody else. And look, there's my backyard over there, just under Europe, extending down most of the planet, like in an inverse shape to South America. That is going to be my fucking backyard. I can't wait to post this on my blog and then reference it in naturalnews.com, org, whatever. So no, I'm really pleased about this. You know, the best thing is, I can now essentially create speeches and lectures without having to do any work anymore, because it used to take forever. It would take so many months to carefully read all the stuff that you'd have to really analyze stuff. Really, now all you have to do, because of non-coercion and just the general way that we can put things together, is to just say at the end during the Q&A, when people say, but anything really, but followed by some sort of objection, is to just say, I'm sorry if you're disagreeing with me. That's universally preferential behavior. Hence, universally preferential behavior exists, and because I've just asserted that means that you can't disagree with me, because that also justifies private property, because you own yourself. And if you're disagreeing, you are essentially owning yourself when you do that, and that's private property. So private property, basically. Give me my private property.
Yeah, it's determined by praxeology. It's pretty much self-justifying, right? So, but yeah, it's a good point you make about the peer-reviewed journals. We don't have to waste all this time actually spending hundreds of hours trying to get to the bottom of each issue that we're trying to research. We can just make opinions from blogs, or from opinions just if they sit well with us, and that's going to be conducive to a much more free world, much more free of coercion and everything. We can reject things like scientific consensus, since it's only been established through state-run journals. We can just ignore all the health guidelines by all the authorities, since they're all state funded, and we can just ignore all this stuff because it really has no basis in a free society. So, I mean, just think about how great that will be when you can just form your own opinion without any coercion from the scientific community telling you what to think.
Somebody once told me what to think, and it took me 3 weeks to recover. It was astonishing. I really don't like it when people try and inform me about things, No but followed by anything is an affront to everything that I hold dear, okay? And you should feel deeply sorry and woefully unhappy that you've crossed that line. It's an absolute affront. And I've spelt affront with 3 Zs as well. Now, one final point, and that is that people are going to probably say, oh, look, Berkowitz and McLeish have been corrupted, and they essentially can change their mind just like that. And actually, all of their previous work with the movement claiming to be based on science is not only invalid; it shows their misunderstanding of science. To which I say, "Pardon? Sorry, could you repeat the question, please? Because I didn't hear you." And that's going to be my complaint and my statement for anything from now on, is just sorry, I can't hear you. Okay. Thanks very much for listening. We will be setting up Bitcoin and PayPal and Visa and MasterCard and Amex, especially. Amex is going to be the biggest link on the main Zeitgeist Movement homepage in the next week, so that we can take donations. Not for any particular project. We're just going to take random donations from people. We would like it to be $10 per thing that we do. By thing, we really just mean anything, really. I mean, it could be a Facebook post I make. Like, if I do that, then I've evidently contributed something of value to the market, and it's worth something. And because it's been delivered to your desktop, or your Mac or your phone or whatever, like that's basically robbery and coercion if you don't pay for it having been delivered already, even if you didn't ask for it. So there'll be that, and we're just going to make loads of money, guys. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be the Zeitgeist movement is going to make so much money, and the great thing is we don't even have to tell you we're going to what we're going to spend it on. It's going to be fantastic. We'll say that we're doing certain things with it, like contribute to Ben McLeish's travel expenses for going around the world, undoing the untold damage he's done by telling people that they should be part of a global, holistic view of society that really takes into account human nature. What complete bollocks. But I have to go. I have to go around now. I have to go to Austria and apologize to them personally about just, ruining their economists for a bit. And now I'm totally one of them. Presumably because the internet is international, I'm going to have to go all the way to Australia and say sorry to them as well. And it's going to cost a lot of money, but we'll get this money from the people that will just blindly contribute on our website. Matt, over to you, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight the fact that our profits are going to be even greater once Peter's head of money and you're, heading economic calculation, and I'm one of the heads of the super global computers that controls everything. I mean, think about how much we can rig things in our favor, and we can just capitalize on this for the Zeitgeist movement. But when I say the Zeitgeist movement, I really just mean you, me, and Peter. But of course, I'm not going to really share it with you if that's going to be more to my advantage. So, as long as we, use the non-aggression principle, then everything is going to work out, and we can maximize our profits through private property.
That is really good. I'm also petitioning Cambridge University to bring in a course on the science of praxeology. But for anybody who doesn't know, by the way, praxeology is the study of human behavior, or rather the human will to action. Since we're all rationally self-maximizing individual machines, with infinite wants as well. Like, I could want anything right now. I could really go for a dose of anything right now. I really could. 2 doses of anything. There you go. It's so infinite. The number is going up all the time. But I mean, I noticed recently that there wasn't an entry in Wikipedia for praxeology. And so I did the best thing that anybody could do, and I created one. And then it got deleted. But then I just undeleted it. So it's really good. And that shows you how open systems combined with stuff that I just want to say and things I want to just simply assert so that I have a reference point, are really good for that, because then I can just essentially make them up. I mean, write them down for the first time, not make them up, write them down for the first time. So, and it is good. I wasn't sure how to spell praxeology, so I had to look it up first. But then when I knew how to spell it, then I made the Wikipedia page. So if anybody wants to know anything about praxeology or Austrian economics, you can ask me, because I wrote the Wikipedia page on it. Okay, Matt, over to you, and then I think we better get to really undoing the damage that we have caused this fragile little world.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight again that the science of human behavior, praxeology, essentially rests upon the assumption of free will. It just blindly assumes that all of us have free will, that we're unaffected by the environment around us. And though I may have disagreed with that assumption, now I basically have to assume it. Otherwise, our entire worldview essentially falls apart, right? So we basically just have to assume that free will exists. Otherwise, none of what we're saying today makes any sense. So I think, with that said, I'm kind of ashamed at all of our work that we've done up till now, because on one hand, it's completely contradictory to what we stand for now, but on the other hand, I guess we can't be too hard on ourselves if we really want to follow a scientific worldview. We're just updating our beliefs. And I guess with that, I'll say say goodbye to the audience. Thanks very much for listening. I hope you can reconcile what you've heard today with everything that you've heard in the past, and just try to add up all the different pieces of opinions that we've given here today.
Yeah, Matt, thanks very much again for just correcting this slight misunderstanding of mine. I mean, it really has been very useful. So, and that's a goodbye from me and from my private army as well.
What we are trying during all these discussions and talks here is to see if we cannot radically bring about a transformation of the mind. To understand is to transform what is. Not